this deep dive hits different, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, we're not just unpacking an argument or analyzing a policy this time.
Right.
We're diving deep into what it means to be Quebecois in Canada today, but through this really personal lens.
Sort of like a first-hand account of navigating identity
Yeah,
in a place that's constantly grappling with its own sense of self.
exactly. And I gotta say, the essayist's deep respect for the Quebecois people, their resilience, it's palpable. And here's the thing, it's not blind admiration, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance there.
He pushes back against this, I don't know, maybe victimhood narrative, even when he's talking about something as undeniably awful as the Acadian expulsion.
That's where the essayist really got me thinking.
Yeah.
He compares it to, get this, the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
For those of us who didn't pay attention in history class, quick recap.
16th century, mass slaughter of French Protestants. Brutal, ugly chapter in European history.
So what's the connection he's making? Seems like a heavy comparison.
I think he's forcing us to confront the messy, often brutal realities of history, the stuff that's easy to gloss over or simplify.
So it's less about pointing fingers and more about acknowledging the weight of the past.
Precisely. And how that weight continues to shape identities even centuries later. It's this complexity that I think informs his whole perspective on what it means to be Quebecois today.
And this is where that comparison to Albertan nationalism comes in, right? He calls it inauthentic.
Right, right. And I think for him, there's this fundamental difference between a deeply rooted cultural identity, something that's been forged over centuries, like in Quebec, and a more, manufactured kind of nationalism. He seems to be suggesting that Quebec's identity, this blend of French heritage, language, history, it has a depth that some newer expressions of nationalism just don't possess.
It's like he's saying it's not just about being proud of where you come from. It's about understanding the forces that shaped that where.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how often do we do that?
Yeah.
Really interrogate the historical roots of our own identities, whether individual or collective. This essayist challenges us to go beyond the surface level and grapple with those complexities.
And speaking of identity, this essayist dives right into a topic that's always so, really loaded when we're talking about Quebec.
Right.
Exactly. Language. He's saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, that while it's crucial, of course, it's almost become like, the only thing that matters when it comes to being Quebecois.
Yeah, he's definitely wrestling with that whole legacy of the Quiet Revolution.
Okay, so for those of us who might not be up on our Quebec history, what was that all about?
So picture this. Quebec in the 1960s, right? Before that, their identity was very much tied to the Catholic Church, traditional values, that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm with you.
The Quiet Revolution, though, it upends all that.
Big time.
Huge. It brings about this massive push for modernization, secularization, and this really, really strong emphasis on the French language being at the core of what it means to be Quebecois.
So like a whole new sense of nationhood, but with language at the center.
Exactly. And it makes sense, right? There's this feeling of having been marginalized, overlooked for so long. But, the essayist, he's grappling with the implications of that, especially as an Anglophone.
Especially as an Anglophone, yeah. And that's where his story about Bill 96 comes in, right? That workplace meeting, it sounds like something out of a dystopian novel.
It's pretty unsettling, for sure.
His supervisor is basically like, hey, watch out, the language police could show up any minute.
Not literally, but yeah. He's talking about government officials having the power to come in and inspect workplaces to make sure enough French is being spoken.
I mean, come on,
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And you can really feel that fear, that sense of being squeezed, of not really belonging.
Absolutely. And it gets to the heart of this question of, well, who gets to decide what belonging even means, right?
Mm-hmm.
He clearly supports protecting Quebecois culture.
Yeah.
But he's also afraid of this narrowing definition of what it means to be Quebecois,
And it feels like all of this leads to this really heavy question about the
Yeah.
future,
Future
of Canada.
Yeah,
Like, can it hold together?
right.
And the essayist seems to think, maybe a split is kind of inevitable at this point.
He seems to be wrestling with that possibility.
He even brings up that flag, the Carillon Sacré-Cœur,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
which is the Quebec flag, but with the Sacred Heart.
With the Sacred Heart of Jesus, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Powerful symbol.
And for him, it represents this, idealized vision of Quebec, like what it could be or maybe what it once was.
Right. Rooted in tradition, faith.
And it's sad, in a way, because you can tell he's so torn.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he believes in self-determination,
Right.
but he's also terrified of what an independent Quebec would actually look like.
For himself, for everyone?
For everyone. And he uses this phrase,
What's that?
primacy or succession.
Oh, wow.
And it just, like, it stuck with me.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's like he's saying that for Canada to survive, one group always has to be on top. And if they're not,
Yeah.
then it's over.
It's like this really stark choice, you know?
It is. And it made me think about, like, all these other places where that same dynamic is playing out.
Right, right. It's not just a Quebec thing.
Not at all. So to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. How do we deal with these really different visions of what a nation should be? Can we find a way to bridge those divides, or is separation the only path forward? Hit us up on social media. Let's keep this conversation going.